Welcome to Best New Releases. People say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but it's almost impossible not to. And if you've ever come across one designed by Claire Ward, you will have been impressed time and time again. Her long and illustrious career has spanned decades, working with the UK's major publishing houses. She's worked under several titles, earning herself the most unique one to date, Designer at Large at Harper Collins. Claire has been responsible for the cover designs of a huge number of bestsellers and classics, from Brick Lane to The Girl on the Train and Before I Go to Sleep. More recently, her covers have been an iconic and important part of campaigns that brought us hit after hit from Lucy Foley, Abigail Dean, Lionel Shriver, and so many more. 37 of her covers at least have been on the Sunday Times bestseller list. She works on 70 to 80 covers at any one time, and she loves what she does. As a writer, I find the process of jacket design fascinating, but even more so as a reader. I have long wanted to understand more about what goes into the magical art of making a reader want to buy one book amongst the thousands that are on offer. And today we get to find out. A huge welcome to you, Claire, and thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
You're very welcome.
So, should we dive in? I want to ask you first off about your background and your inspiration. Can you tell us how you got into book jacket design, and was it something you always wanted to do?
It was something I'd never considered doing, to be honest, because I didn't realize such jobs existed. And I still don't think it's advertised enough that there are jobs for designers in publishing. I went to Glasgow School of Art and actually trained as an illustrator. But then I did design and illustration, but illustration is what I really wanted to do. And at my degree show, somebody from Oxford University Press liked my work and asked me to send some samples. Um, that's how I got to know about OUP. And I couldn't get a job in Glasgow because every job I went for, they wanted experience. And then I saw a job for a cover designer at OUP, and I thought, well, they've got some of my work on record already, so I thought, I'll give that a go. But I always wanted to do advertising. And actually, I didn't get into Glasgow Art School when I first tried. So I thought, well, I want to do advertising so I could be a copywriter. And I got into Glasgow University to do English. But my art teacher said, oh, I think you should be a designer. And I went to college in Carlisle for a year and then reapplied to Glasgow Art School. So anyway, it was a bit of a roundabout way to get into cover designing. And I did, to be honest, bullshit my way into the job. During the interview, they asked me all sorts of publishing questions and I knew nothing about it, but I just blagged my way in, and then I realized I love doing it. But it's quite a niche job, and there's not that many of the bigger design publishing houses have their own in-house design team, but lots of the smaller ones can't afford to do that. So it's all freelanced out, but it's freelanced out by editors rather than designers. So therefore it can get a little bit tricky because designers understand the process more than editorial do.
And so let's talk about process, because I know that's something a lot of authors and a lot of readers will be really interested in. Can you talk to us about the journey from the moment you first hear about the book and read the book and pick up on the basics of the story or whatever that is to launch day?
Um, well, in theory, we should be briefed a year before publication date, which does makes it sound as if we've got loads of time then. Um, but nowadays, like sales want covers to sell in with about 7 or 8 months before publication, sorry. So in theory, we've got about 2 to 3 months to design something, which again sounds like a lot of time, but given the amount of titles we work on at any given time, uh, that's quite a lot of plates to spin. I personally like to read as much as I can. I can't read every single book that we're given, but I think if you're going to design a book, if you read it, you as a designer, you'll pick up on little things that an editor might not pick up on. Um, so I encourage all the designers to read as much as they possibly can. I mean, there's one book I remember before I actually got a job at Transworld. There's a cover by John Irving called A Prayer for Owen Meany. I think the cover's changed since then, actually, because I changed it. But on the cover, there is just an armadillo on it. And I hadn't read the book then, but it was a really good, I thought it was a really good cover. And when I read the book, that's a tiny, tiny part of the book. There's a stuffed armadillo under his bed or something like that. Now, an editor would never pick that out as a kind of key icon on a cover, which is why I think you really do, particularly with new fiction or something that's a little bit alternative, you have to read it in order to find, to find that little key moment. Um, so so I might be working on, I mean, at the moment I'm working on 60 books, and considering I'm only working 3 days a week, that's quite a lot. So I might be reading one and then I'll have read another one and I'll be picture researching for that one. So we use picture libraries. Um, we also commission illustrators, but you can't really commission an illustrator until you've got an idea. So ideas are absolutely key. You've got to have an idea first. The editors do give us a brief. I quite often ignore the brief because what's the point in having a creative team if you don't let them be creative? So all I would look for in a brief would be who's our key market. I mean, ideally you want a little bit of a synopsis. You want to know where it fits in the market. So sometimes editors will give us other covers to show us where it sits in the market, not really for us to copy, but so that we get an instant idea of the kind of feel for it. So really, from a brief, I would want to know who, is it going to sell on the high street? Is it Amazon? Is it, who's your key retailer? Quite often when it's a big book, they go, oh, every retailer. And it's like, well, who's it going to appeal to? Everyone. I mean, that's not that useful. Because I think if you try and hit every market, you could miss every market. You need to go for your key market and hope that it seeds out. Um, it's not an exact science. So therefore, I kind of I kind of think there needs to be an element of trust that to let the design team run with an idea. So I would always use a brief as a starting point. I'm not necessarily going to follow it. I often say to younger designers, do what they've asked you to do, but then do what you think works better as well, so that you show that you've not ignored them. Um, so once you've got an idea and once you've done your picture research, you then start putting things together and see what works and what doesn't work. Sometimes you can get it really quickly. Sometimes I can design a cover in a day and it goes through. Sometimes it can take months. So it can be massively frustrating. But also what I love about it is like every day is different. And I will jump from one job to the other because I'll get stuck on something. I think, okay, I need to kind of have another go at something else. Um, but that's what makes the job so interesting. Is like we work across all the genres, and it's instantly stimulating and exciting to work on.
There's so much about what you've just said that is interesting. It absolutely blows my mind that you're working on 70 or 80 titles at any one time. You must, what kind of systems do you have to track where you are at any stage, any one stage in those processes?
We have a studio manager who is absolutely brilliant, and I don't know how he can keep track of everything, but we have a work list. We work through stuff by publication date, ideally. I mean, it's really when you're a designer, you might get excited about a book that's come in that's way off, but you're desperate to go and design it. But we have to kind of, you might be doing that in the background, but you have to work through your books by publication date in order for sales to have enough to sell in
Mm.
with. So our studio manager has meetings with us regularly. He goes through our individual work lists and sort of says, "Oh, this one's really desperate now. Can you bring that up your list?" Um, Likewise, he will monitor when we need to get things to production to print. So there's that date. That's a date we absolutely cannot miss, the to print date, or you'll miss your publication date. So the visual one, getting visuals to sales, we try and hit that date, but we don't always hit it, which means then sometimes sales have nothing to sell in with. And if sales go in to try and sell to a customer and they don't have a cover, the customer will just skim over it. Because I guess they kind of think if you can't be bothered giving us a cover, you obviously don't think that much about the book, which isn't true, but it's just, the volume of work that we have to work on and trying to get it past so many people because we take our ideas to a cover meeting. That's got editorial, sales, marketing. It's got the whole world and his brother in there, and they all get a say, which I hate because I think democracy is overrated, frankly. I like to see myself as an enlightened despot. Um, so if you have that many people having an input, it will water down a good idea, in my opinion. I kind of think compromise is not a good idea either. I much rather if some people love a cover and some people hate it because that shows it's actually doing something. So trying to get things to a cover meeting, sometimes a cover can go back and forward into a cover meeting, 6 or 7 times. And then I feel the designer starts to not lose interest, but designers design intuitively. So if they're then told to do something that they don't feel works, it's really hard to do that because you feel it's the wrong direction. And that happens a lot. So I know people think I'm a bit of a bolshy art director, which I am, but you need to be in order to kind of control that many people. Which is why during COVID I hated doing it on Zoom because I couldn't intimidate people on screen. I like to give them the Glaswegian death stare, and it wasn't working for me during COVID. So I'm really glad it's gone back to. We do it in real life now. I don't go anymore because I've passed over my baton to someone else. So I don't really go unless it's my covers that are in there. But it's so much better to discuss these things in real life. And actually, we still print covers out and wrap them around books and put them on the shelf so that people can see how it sits, actual size in amongst other books. I kind of think that's the only way to judge whether something works or not.
And this individual kind of and the committee side of designing a cover must be one of the most challenging and satisfying and interesting parts of the process, right? Because you've got a very distinctive idea about what you know and feel it should be. And then you're taking it into a committee environment. Who has the final sign off on the covers that end up going to the authors?
I guess it depends how it goes in the cover meeting. I mean, I think it should always be. I think the editor and the designer should work together, and the editor or publisher of that book should have a vision for that book, and they should work together and go into that meeting and defend that cover. But
Mm,
it doesn't often go like that, because as soon as somebody says something negative about a cover, it can all unravel, and then the editor might lose confidence in it. If sales don't like it, sales have a huge say in what gets put forward. So it's really complicated. So it kind of depends who's in the room. It depends
mm,
who's the most powerful person in the room at the time.
mm, mm.
And then you, sometimes we'll go with one, but then they'll come back and they'll end up going with maybe the first or second round that we've done. Because I do think you get your best ideas first or second attempt, then it starts getting watered down again. So I mean, even the cover meeting's not an exact science. It's kind of and if there isn't a consistency, if some people are in the meeting one week and then there's different people in it the next week when it comes back and they haven't seen what was there before, it can all unravel again. And I kind of do think it seems to be kind of people's nature in general. In a meeting, if you show them something, they try and find something wrong with it rather than try to find the positive thing. Maybe it's because that makes them feel that if they find something wrong with it, it validates them being in the meeting. But I wish we could kind of change that mindset and people could look at the positive sides rather than trying to find something wrong. But I've been in a lot of cover meetings and it happens in every publishing house. I think cover meetings are one of the most contentious meetings in any publishing house because you're relying on people's taste and their personal, their personal likes. It's very subjective.
And of course, the cover is as a result of a subjective world that the author has built, right? So you've got layers and layers of subjectivity, and because
Mm,
it's then a piece of writing, whether that's a visual piece of art or a piece of writing, everybody is interpreting how that world feels and looks in their own
yeah.
mind's eye and
Mm, yeah.
defending that position. It must be so complex making those decisions. And the process that you're talking about precedes anything that has then arrived at the author, right? So,
Absolutely.
when it
Yeah.
goes to the author, how many, I mean, I know from experience we've done this before, but
Mm.
what's the sort of standard number of images you might present to an author with a view to signing off within a certain time frame?
I would say we mostly send one. And then either, I mean, quite often we get a thumbs up immediately and they're happy with it. Sometimes they don't like it. And also it might be author and agent. So the agent will be involved. I don't send them. It's usually the editors that will deal directly with the author. There's a few authors I am allowed to deal with directly, but I think people think I'm a bit too dangerous to be allowed to speak to every author. Um, but I would prefer that we sent maybe three versions or four, and we
Mm,
pull out the one that we think is best, but just so that they can see that. But I think it depends on the relationship the editor has with their authors. I think it depends on, how tricksy we think authors might be, or it's difficult. I think you have to take the personalities into account about, there are certain authors that definitely want to be involved much more. I've just done the new Philippa Gregory, and actually I was allowed to deal with her direct, and I've shown her probably about 100 different versions, but I really enjoyed working on that book, and it was really nice to collaborate because she knows much more about history than I do, and we worked really well together. But it did take about 3 months. I probably only just worked for her, but so yeah, it does vary. I do deal direct with Lionel Shriver as well, and she's a very clever woman, and I really appreciate her input as
mm,
well. So it comes
mm.
down to personalities, I think, and how people like to work with each other, but it differs, I'm afraid.
I'm so interested in how you visually translate stories and words and characters. How you translate a book that might be funnier, a book that's funny or a book that's sad or a book that's particularly dramatic or that has genre at its heart, like a Philippa Gregory.
Mm.
Um,
Um, well, as I say, I kind of, designers design intuitively. Um, a lot of crime, I think, looks the same because there are certain uh, color scheme. If you have a running man on a cover, it's a thriller. But there's only so many running men you can do. I mean, they must be exhausted. So yeah, so running man is a bit of a trope for kind of thrillers. They're usually quite dark, with a there'll be a kind of central image that contrasts against the darkness. The dark says thriller to me, but then every time I do a thriller, everyone goes, "Oh, it's a bit dark." So then if you do it with the brighter colors, it doesn't look like a thriller anymore. So it has to be about atmosphere and creating tension through your imagery. You can also, by changing your type style, you can either take it up market or mass market. You can also make it funny just by using slightly jaunty typefaces. I once did a presentation to some students and showed them the importance of type, and I got some like Bernard Cornwall covers with the traditional type on it, and then I put on some really super jokey type on it, which instantly shows the difference that the type will make to the feel of it. So, absolutely everything needs to work on a cover. I'm quite obsessed with the title. Titles to me are really important. Um, if you give me a really long title like Insomnia is not that long, Sanatorium or something like that, and then you say, I want a type only cover, I haven't got much to go with because the cover's only so wide.
do
You
you mean
can't,
the length of the do you mean the length of
length
the
of the
word rather
words,
than the
yeah.
length of the title so that you've
The,
got
the, yeah, Yeah, so I see titles in shape, but also they need to say something as well. And another example of getting the title right is do you remember the book Eleanor Oliphant is Completely
very
Fine?
well, yeah.
Yeah. So that came in to be briefed, and at the time of briefing, it was called Eleanor Oliphant, and the author name is Gail Honeyman, and she was a debut writer. So I said, I don't think you can have that title because who's the people won't know who the author is, who's the author and who's the title. Do you know what I mean? And so
Yes.
I said, I think you need a more lyrical title, a bit like, The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry. And actually, to be fair, the editor, who I think is your editor, Martha, took that on board and went off and thought about it, and then came back with Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, which then worked. It gave more space to the title, and it made more sense of the fact that but everybody because they were mostly English, they thought Eleanor Oliphant was hilarious as a title. But I was like, Oliphant is quite a common name in Scotland, so it's not that
Mm.
hilarious. So those sort of things are really massively important. But both lengthwise for your title, but also give the designer something to work with, or So, and then your shout lines need to work to reinforce your. Do you know what I mean by shout? You know what I mean by
Yep.
shout line.
Do you
So
mean that's
strap
the
line.
strap line is very different from the quotes that you get, isn't it?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
to make all of that measure on the
Yeah.
cover.
So yeah, so just so that, that needs to feed into that needs to help you make sense of your title. It needs sometimes needs to make sense of, say I use an image that's maybe not totally obvious why I've used it. If you have a line that makes sense of why I've used that image. So it's absolutely, and the quotes that you put on the front will also add a little bit to the whole overall story. So all of these things I think are really important to make it work. And then you have to remember, like, cover designers' jobs are to get people to pick the book up. If they pick the book up, we've done our job. If they turn it over and read the copy and put it down again, then editorial haven't written very good copy. Just saying.
Claire, can you talk to us a bit about market leading and market following?
Well, again, at briefing, we do discuss whether or not we want to follow the market about, well, like what's working at the moment. So it doesn't mean it's different from copying. It's kind of playing it safe and like, okay, this is a straightforward thriller. It works in this sort of market, so we just kind of want more of the same but better, basically. Um, there's nothing wrong with genre. Genre is massively important, and it can sell a lot of books. You just have to be the best you can be in that. You need to use quality photographs. You need to get your type right, stuff like that. Occasionally, we discuss when we're going to take a risk, and we want something that I would call disruptive, which is doing something that's a little bit different in the
Mm.
market. That's not usually it wouldn't be my decision to do that. I mean, I might do a cover that is that, and then everyone has to discuss whether or not they're willing to take that risk because it often is a risk. I mean, the one that did work for us was The Hunting Party because that was very much out of genre. It wasn't dark. It wasn't following everything else. It was bright yellow in the background, really simple image.
It
And
had a stag, didn't
had a
it? It
stag's
was
head on it,
very,
which
very arresting
on the
image.
brief it said
Mm.
no stag's head. I thought, don't tell me what to do. Um, but that worked because it was so different. I don't think it's a brilliant piece of design. It was originally designed just as the book proof, and then people liked it. So therefore, it was like I think the publisher at the time was willing to take that risk, and it paid off. I mean, sometimes we take risks and it doesn't pay off. It doesn't work. Maybe we've come too early in a cycle, and it's not. The market's not ready for it. Um, we talked about the Philippa Gregory earlier. I mean, that is slightly out of genre because I haven't done the traditional painting of a woman in in situ. I've gone a little bit different on that. Um, so it's kind of it's you have to be a little bit brave to do something that's disruptive. But then when it takes off, then loads of other publishers will jump on that bandwagon and copy it. And then that becomes genre and it's not disruptive anymore. So it's like knowing when to kind of change it up and take a risk.
And how do you feel when other publishers jump on that bandwagon? Do you feel flattered, vindicated, annoyed? Is there an
I'm
issue of
always
sort of
annoyed. I don't mind people, look how many people have copied the Richard Osman. I mean, that's not obviously not one of
Mm.
them, but that's just gone on and on and on. And when I was at Trans World, not that I designed the Dan Browns, but the Dan Browns got copied a lot. And when I was at Trans World, they discussed whether or not we should change it. And I was like, no, don't change it because we started it and that's his look and it's other people that are copying. So, sometimes it's fine. What I get annoyed about is when uh say we steal an author from somewhere or poach, not steal, but from somewhere else, and then we redesign their covers, and then that cover starts working, and then the publisher that owns the backlist, but we can't stop them. And it does make business sense to do that. It's because like if that's working, then we own the backlist. Let's make it look like that, and then punters will think that that's a new front list. I find that quite annoying, but in a way, I guess it's flattering because it's like if that's working, then I mean, I did once email an art director saying, "Can't you have you not got any ideas of your own?" And I didn't get a reply, but anyway, it was yeah, it can be annoying, but it's part of the gig.
And can you talk to me about palette as well? Because obviously people have very it's when you walk into a bookshop, one of the first things you see before I think you even see titles and read the strapline or the quotes is the colors jumping out at you. Um, just can you talk us through the kind of use of those pinky purple palettes and neon and those kind of the kind of more watercolor washes? Presumably, those are all very dependent upon genre and where the book is placed and marketed and positioned on the bookshelves.
Um, I don't. I mean, lots of crime books are often blue and yellow and black. That color combination works incredibly well for crime books. But if I use that color scheme and everyone goes, oh, get the red, can we see other colors? Blah blah blah. Sometimes there are certain colors that work better than others, and I do have to keep explaining to the cover meeting there are only so many colors in the world, which they don't seem to understand. The amount of times I have to change skies because oh, can we have a different color sky? Skies are skies, and it's like if you make it go to crazy colors, it looks like it's an apocalypse. I don't really believe in the shelf testing thing, which people do like to do. They like to look at their covers against. But the thing is, we don't know what's going to be on the tables at the point of publication. And things will only stand out if everything else around it is a different color, if you know what I mean. So if I go into a bookshop and there's a dark palette everywhere and I've done a cover that's white, my cover will stand out the most. If it's
Mm,
mostly pale colors and I've got a black cover, my cover is going to stand out the most.
mm.
So you can't really second guess that. So I kind of think it's pointless doing a shelf test. I once did I did a presentation and James Daunt was doing it as well. And somebody asked him about, how do they choose what goes out on the tables? And he said, well, sometimes we've got quite a lot of blue books, so that we might put a white book in there, or if there's a yellow book, we'll put it in there. And I was like thinking, even looking at the covers, that's just like so I kind of wonder if that's what goes on in bookshops, is people just like to do a little array of things. So I think designers should design and use the color palette that they think works best for their design,
Mm,
irrespective of what everyone else
mm.
is doing. But not everyone agrees with me. But I don't think you go into designing a cover thinking I'm going to use this color palette. I think that comes
From
as
the
you
idea.
from
Yeah,
the idea. Yeah.
yeah. Can I also, Claire, I'm aware that we're running out of time. I really want to ask you about AI. Is AI something that is helpful or threatening or both in the current climate? And how do you think that might change as the years go by?
Um, I hate it. I find it threatening. Um, We don't use it at all at the moment, certainly not knowingly. The picture libraries that we deal with, we've made it clear that we don't want any AI, and a lot of them aren't accepting AI generated images. Um, I think it's not going to go away, I'm sure it can be useful. I mean, I use Photoshop a lot. I guess Photoshop is a little bit AI because you're using technology to create certain things for you, but the thing I'm most worried about is people's creativity and their copyright. And AI is just stealing people's images and smashing them together. It's hugely sophisticated. It's getting more and more sophisticated. And you have to protect your creative industries. We have to protect photographers and illustrators, or they'll just disappear. And I don't think you can replace you need the kind of sensitivity and the kind of thought. I mean, people who are pro AI go, well, you still have to have the idea and you still have to put the keywords in order to create that thing. But for me, the joy is creating it myself. I mean, obviously, I don't illustrate things anymore, but sometimes I'll create a cover that's using 12 different images and I'm comping it together in Photoshop. But we pay for every image we use. Every image is licensed, so it's not the creators are getting money for that. And I feel really strongly that we have to protect that. But I think it is definitely a worry I mean, I'm glad I'm at the end of my career because I do worry about, designers coming into it now. I think it will cause problems. And also, I think editors will think they can design their own covers, which is just going to be a
Mhm.
nightmare.
And also, well, I suppose one of the key ingredients that you miss if you are purely designing with AI is empathy. Creativity and empathy, I
Yeah.
think, often go hand in hand, and that
Yeah,
ability to
definitely.
dive deeply into a character or a story and translate
Mm,
that in a way that is relatable in a human way, whether that's
yeah.
visual or literary, is a very human skill, isn't
I
it?
think I think it's just soulless doing it that way,
Mm,
and I kind of feel it's cheating. I mean, maybe that's a stupid term to use, but you know, I mean, as I say, it's not going to go away, and we are, well, I'm not, but the team are encouraged to learn about AI, but we don't use it. We do it in a kind of control, so that because I think you need to know, you probably need to know more about it to know why you don't want to use it,
mm,
or
mm,
the bits that you do feel that morally we can use and not use. But a lot of it has to be on trust. It's like we have to trust the photographers we use and the illustrators we use that they're not using AI. I mean, we have that clearly on our contracts, no
yeah.
AI. But I don't even think picture libraries may say to their contributors, we don't want AI generated images, but that has to be a trust thing as well, because what if it
Mm,
is?
mm.
It's really tricky.
It's a very tricky situation. So, and knowing that we are in this environment and it's not going to change anytime soon and it will be part of everyday life, what advice would you give to somebody wanting to break into book jacket design, knowing that this is something that they have to stand with?
Um, I don't know. It's tricky, isn't it? I guess learn. I mean, I would say if you want to go into book cover design, don't use AI to start with. Anyway, I mean, things may change, and maybe the
Mm,
licensing will sort itself out, and but I think you have to learn the bare bones of designing and putting something together yourself without using AI, and then maybe further down the line you use AI if it becomes more generally acceptable, I guess. But I think
mm,
if you want to be a cover designer, you should go for it, because it's not it's not that well paid. Publishing's not that well paid, certainly to start with, but it's just a great industry to work in,
mm.
particularly books. The variety of stuff you get to work on, and the authors you get to work with is just great. And I can't think of a job I would rather do. So
It's a really inspiring thing to hear, given how many years you've worked in the industry and how long you've been designing book covers, for it to still be a job that you really love. I think
mm.
there aren't many people in that situation, and it's lovely to hear that and to talk about all the skills and talents and the challenges and necessary hurdles that need to be jumped in order to get to this place where people are walking into a bookshop and choosing your book that you designed is a
I,
wonderful
I,
thing.
Sometimes I think I'm a bit shifty because I see people in the bookshop lifting up one of my books and I sidle up to them and I'm like,
Do you
do
ever talk
you
to
like
them?
that? Do you like that? Do you want that? I'm surprised I haven't been arrested, but I mean, I still get a buzz when I go into a shop and I see something I've designed racked out and stuff like that. It's yeah, I
I
still
bet
love
you
it.
do. I bet you
Uh,
do. Claire,
yeah.
thank you so much. Let's